It's an orgy of game and everybody knows your name.
Vortex NTRPGCON.
The organizer and Satan are one and the same.
Vortex NTRPGCON.
And we'll all be bumping uglies playing any show's games.
Vortex NTRPGCON.
North Texas RPGCon. First weekend in June at the Westin Inn in scenic Irving, Texas. Pack those dice bags and a spare liver.
Vortex NTRPGCON. Vortex NTRPGCON. Vortex NTRPGCON. Vortex NTRPGCON.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. So today is going to be an interview by my wife, Amy Lee, posing as the roving reporter to BJ Boyd and I, BJ Boyd of the Arcane and Alienist, about our North Texas RPGCon experience. It will serve as a recap for North Texas RPGCon, and I'm just going to play it in its entirety. And you heard TJ Drennan's music. It'll also close out the show, but probably something different. He does the intro and outro music for the Geomologist Presents, and this will be serve as the outro, so you can just listen to the recap. It's about an hour and 10 minutes, and we talk about a lot of things, including what's the best Texas barbecue, in my humble opinion. So anyway, if you want to comment, reach out, geomologist@gmail.com, send me an email or voice message. You can also leave me a voice message through Discord. I'm on various Discords on there, including the Audio Dungeon Discord, which a lot of people who listen to these podcasts come from, listen to, discuss games, and all that kind of stuff. You can also leave me a message via SpeakPipe, and that link is in the show notes. So the cover art is usually done by Amy, but today will be the cover art for North Texas RPGCon. All right, on with the show. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. BJ and I just got back from North Texas RPGCon, and here we are with the roving reporter to interview us about the event. But first, I will play you a call-in that the roving reporter sent to us while we were up at the con.
Well, hello there, Mr. Geomologist. This is the roving reporter who is roving herself right at home. I am keeping the Geomologist podcast going while you are up there grabbing off some fun in North Texas at the RPG Con. And I am hoping that you are being a very good tour guide to BJ, the Arcane Alienist. This is his first con, so you've got to show him the ropes. That's why I couldn't go. I get in the way. I've always wanted to do interviews, and you know what? That reminds me, you should be doing interviews. So I'll let you go so that you can run off to those tables, play those exciting games, and then make sure you give us a wrap up. All righty, have fun, you two.
Well, that's it for the roving reporter. What do you think, BJ?
Thanks, Mom.
Well, you know, as the roving reporter, one has to love all of her children equally, even though neither one of you are my children, but that's okay.
I kind of hope you love Carl more than you love me.
I love everybody the same,
Oh.
except I happen to love our dog Riley more than everybody.
Oh,
So I'm second to the dog.
no,
Noted.
that's the way it works.
You're above Atlas.
Right. Well, Amy, as a roving reporter, in your roving reporter persona, Amy has multiple personalities, but don't judge her for that. But she was
Okay.
going
We
to
should also, based on your to point out that we're back at home,
yes,
the con, but not in the same house. We don't live. We're not roommates.
right.
We
We were roommates at the con.
Yeah.
So
Well, Carl's my live-in roommate.
yeah,
yes.
but
With
I'm
the dog.
back. I'm
So
back in
BJ and I
Oklahoma.
shared in the snoring and hearing the bodily functions and all that kind of crap. So,
I'm
we're
glad
bonded,
that
and we had a
you're-
few beers together. So for me, my philosophy is if we share a beer together, we are bonded for life. So BJ and I
Alright.
did share a few beers together, and that's probably, Amy, roving reporter, why we didn't do interviews, because we were going to go like, oh, we're going to record for like Cerebrivore or Arcane Alienist or Geomologist Presents, but Hobbs, in his drunken wisdom, said, no, it's a bad idea. So we did not. So it was great.
That's why
We
you
met
do
so
your
many people.
interviews
Well, we
before
saw
the beer.
what's that?
That's why you do all the interviews before the beer.
Yes, but so hard because so much was going on. So yeah. So
This is
Amy
why I
asked.
can't let you go to cons by yourself.
That's
But,
true.
by the time we finished with the day's gaming events, everybody else was already
Pretty
well
blitzed.
into their beer, and so
Yeah, it's a thing.
they didn't make for good interviews.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I mean, it would make a good
I have to go
interview.
next.
Actually, probably make for a better TikTok video or what's that, Instagram short or something, but not a podcast. All right, Amy, you had a battery of questions you were going to ask us.
I
So
do. As the roving reporter who was trapped at home taking care of the dogs who loved me more.
probably.
And we're just going to get this out of the way first. Riley loves me more than Atlas, but Atlas was such a good dog while you were gone. And then he misbehaves when you get home.
Yeah. Because
So
I
I'm
think
led to
like
believe that
many
maybe Atlas needs a beer. And I do have a doggy beer for him.
like many a child, right? They're very good for one parent, but then for the other parent they act out. Correct?
Yeah. Yep.
That's because this parent is very strict.
Dr. Boyd, what is that called psychologically?
That's called parenting children. That's just the way it is.
That's called Mama Doesn't Spare the Rod to Spare the Children. Anyways, that's how I was raised. But let's circle back to North Texas RPG Con.
Okay.
So for my buried of questions, so we've got to start, since I missed the whole time, we've got to start with Thursday. So Thursday, I know, Carl, you played in a game
Right.
that you were kind of interested in. You were trying to figure out, was it going to be sci-fi? Was it going to be fantasy? Was it going to be something you really enjoyed, maybe wanted to run on your own? So what did you ultimately think of the game you played it?
Yeah, so it was called the Dark Forest, and with all the right, the three body problem, I thought, well, it's going to be sci-fi or fantasy. It was actually a fantasy game, and it was a dude who was playtesting the game. He was playtesting the system, and it was pretty cool. It ended up being a TPK, so I think the author needs to kind of make some tweaks to make it more, survivable for low-level characters. But it was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it.
So that leads me to the question of, if you were running the game, what would you have done differently in order to have not made it a TPK?
I mean, I really don't know because I don't know his system. I think what I would have done is probably so I'm very much of the yes and philosophy. And I
Mhm.
feel like in this particular case, there were not enough ways to solve the problem. Yeah, there were not enough ways to solve the problem. And I think that's just a tweaking of game design. But I think the GM and the author was focused on figuring out how the game worked in a balanced type perspective versus running the adventure for a con to make sense. So, it is what it is. But, it's always fun to go there and play a game that people are playtesting. So I think there was a lot of cool ideas that he threw forth, and it's just a dark fantasy type of game. So I thought it was pretty cool.
That's pretty fun. So isn't the purpose of playtesting to find out how to make the game either more manageable as a player or more survivable, and to test out your theories as to how this character can progress in a game or progress through your theory?
I think it's more to playtest their ideas, not or an adventure, right? So, I mean, I don't think it's about player survival, but it is about balancing and trying to figure out how the balance works, right? So we're just guinea pigs effectively in a playtest type of game.
True. And BJ, did you play in any games on Thursday? I know you had a rough drive in.
No, I didn't get there till about 8 o'clock Thursday night.
Yeah.
I was supposed to, I had originally taken the day off, and then kind of
No, it was later than that because I think
mandatory work event got
Yep.
scheduled, so I had to cancel and head out after work. So
Yeah, I think you got there later because my game was scheduled from like 6 to 11, and then I feel that I was like looking for a way. I mean, we were TPK'd at about that time, about 10 o'clock or so.
Okay.
Because I mean, honestly, well, honestly, I think 4 hours is my maximum in a game, so I got to look at that next time for me,
Hmm.
and stick to the 4 hour type of games. If the game is longer, I'm gonna probably say nah. I don't think so.
Did you guys get breaks?
Yeah, we had a lot of breaks, so that's an issue too. But I try to. I think when I'm running a game, I don't know how well I did this, BJ. You can attest to it, perhaps. When I'm running a game, I feel like definitely a break at the midway point, but maybe a break after a scene or a break every hour kind of works
Yeah. Yeah.
in a 4 hour game. But
Yeah.
definitely, depending on how the action is going, definitely a break at the midway point, right? So the 2 hour mark or
Yeah.
hour and a half mark if it's a 3 hour game.
Well, that's something to definitely look forward to. So, BJ, so I don't leave you out on a Thursday night recap with Carl. How would you feel about playing your first game? It's a test game and it's a TPK. Would you feel as though you were robbed of the fun of the game? Do you feel like convention games are set up to have TPKs? What's your feeling on that?
I think if I knew I was signing up for a play test and that was a possibility, it wouldn't bother me. Particularly if the guy said, "Oh, well, what would have, let me get feedback from you guys. What worked, what didn't work. Let me explain how these mechanics led to this. And is that something I should rethink, or was it just bad? You feel like there's just poor die, the dice just kind of happen to do that sometimes. I would expect, if I'm actually part of a play test, to have kind of an exit interview with the game designer.
Right. We were able to do that.
To not
I think
only
that was great.
to ask what worked, what didn't work, but did you enjoy yourself? So I don't know
Right.
if you got that or not.
No, we did get like an exit interview and stuff like that. So I mean, for debriefing or whatever about that, and I think that was, when I was comparing it to like, all right, I think it was more of a scale thing, or I mean, if you ran this in BX or AD&D, and you were a first level character, and you're attacked by 8 wolves, likely you would not survive, right? As a first level. So it's like I think in that way it's kind of balanced. I think maybe the encounter, if you didn't want to do that, or if you in your world or in your game, random encounters are a thing, like in BX or AD&D, and the players go in there knowing, well then dinner for wolves. Well,
That, but
dinner for wolves.
it's also pretty easy to run away in BX.
Yeah,
Even if you start a fight and go, "Whoops, we shouldn't have done that."
right.
There's just a strategic way to get yourself out of there and
But
escape.
not if you're surrounded. I mean, I guess you could
That's true.
try to, but against things that are faster than you and they're wanting to
Well,
eat
you
you.
drop money, you drop food, you drop,
Yeah, you could try. Yeah, there are creative ways to do that. So
Mhm.
yeah, so
To me,
and then Thursday we hung out a little bit.
bitter that you got surrounded by some wolves and there was a total TPK.
Yeah, and then we
But
hung out right in the hall and in the
Yeah.
library, I guess,
do you
with some of the.
feel like he took your criticism to heart, or do you feel like he needs to play test it quite a few more times before he brings the game to the table?
I think it's a very raw game, and he's probably going to work on it.
All righty. So why don't we skip to Friday? Because both of you were there on Friday
Right?
and we were up. Did you partake in the exciting breakfast facilities at the hotel?
Nope. I don't think
Did you?
so.
I did.
You did?
Maybe maybe that was on Saturday.
That was on Saturday. Yeah, we
Friday,
didn't.
no, not on Friday.
Yeah, we didn't eat till like after the game, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, that food truck, I didn't know what the name of the food truck was, but they had like hot dogs with sauerkraut. Man, I did it 2 days in a row. That was so good. Like 2 hot dogs for $10. It was great.
Yeah.
So great food trucks. I thought. Well, I mean that food truck. I didn't go the other food truck. One was a barbecue one day, and one was like Mexican food. And Amy being Mexican by association, makes really good Mexican food. So I don't really could have.
Well, I figured they figured most of the people there weren't from Texas. So you go to Texas, and that's the first thing they start trying to do is feed you barbecue and Mexican food. So
Yeah. And barbecue, I guess we did miss out on that, BJ. I guess we could have, instead of going to Flying
Very
Saucer on Saturday
I'm
night for dinner, we could have
pretty
gone to the
picky
barbecue
about my
joint.
barbecue, though. You know,
What's that?
I'm pretty picky about
I
barbecue.
know. Yeah. So when you come down, we gotta. So
I've
definitely
lived
when you
close enough to Texas, and I've lived in Tennessee. I'm very picky,
right.
picky about my barbecue.
So I think when you come down to San Antonio area in October, we're gonna have to definitely make it a point to go to Lockhart because to me, Lockhart is like the mecca of barbecue for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I know,
they have the smoked prime rib.
right? I know, like Austin Weekly or Monthly or whatever the hell they want to call it, came out and said, "Oh, well, Lockhart is not as good as some places in Austin," and that is
Franklin's.
totally false.
It's
Franklin's
good. Good as
Franklin's is
Franklin.
overrated. You got to wait in line for a long time, and it's not that good. And it's not that.
Oh,
It's not.
Oh
You can
my
go to
goodness.
you can go to down the road to Blacks in New Braunfels or the other one of the Sons of the Blacks or whatever in San Marcos or
I'm gonna
South
clear out
Austin.
I'm gonna clear out the spare room for you guys when they run you out of Texas for saying that.
But it's not. I mean it's truth be told for me, Franklin's is like
All
bougie
right.
people
Well, we're not
bougie
going to
people
discuss barbecue. We are here to discuss the North Texas.
bougie. Wait, can I finish my
We will have
bougie?
our own special on barbecue in the future. And
Anyway,
everyone can feel free to call in and tell us their favorite barbecue place, whether it's in Texas or Oklahoma or Louisiana, even California. And yeah, all
no,
right.
they don't
Well,
have barbecue.
go
Anyway,
in.
to finish my statement,
Yes.
Franklin's, I'm not the person who's going to get up at 6 in the morning. I'm too old to wait in line for food. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to wait in line for beer anymore. Why? It's stupid. So, and I think Franklin's is overrated. It's bourgeois barbecue. If you work at Dell or, Dell Medical or whatever, it's great for you. But, really, I think the Mecca is Lockhart. Dude, there's old folks that have been going there for like 50 years to like
Okay,
Croots.
I'm gonna come try the
Croots,
brisket then. I gotta
Croots
try
or
the brisket.
Croots or Smitty's or Blacks in Lockhart. Now there's different things at these different places. So Croots, the prime rib.
Smoked
Smitty's
prime.
Smitty's has this pork chop. Oh my god! And then Blacks, the big brontosaurus beef ribs. So, but that's my opinion. I'm a barbecue snob. So there you go.
All right. Before we get any more hungry, now that we've discussed barbecue, and we are now on to Friday morning, we discussed breakfast. But my understanding, Carl, is you started Friday off with a fun game that was 2 parts.
No,
correct?
no. Wet Wired was in the morning. The afternoon game was the two-parter.
All righty. So because I started with you last time, we're going to start with BJ this time.
He was in that game.
He can tell me how he felt the game went, and then we'll talk to you.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
I don't know, Carl. What do you think? I'm kidding.
Don't
I
make
thought
me.
it really went really well.
That was a Wet Wired game.
It was Wet Wired, which
Mhm.
is cyberpunk fantasy game. It's in the vein of Shadowrun, where it's a sort of a cyberpunk future, but there's also the classic fantasy elements with magic and elves and dwarves, dragons, things like that. And it's based on the Warlock system. And I think what I think Carl probably echoed these thoughts. One of the things I thought that was really cool, particularly for a con game, is it's a system that is very intuitive, very easy to learn. And within 5 or 6 minutes of everybody looking over their character sheets and Carl explaining what we're going to do, we never had any big bog downs and having to, how does this work again? What are we doing? It just really worked very easily with people who had never played it before. So I thought that was a really a strength of that system. I think if you want to get into real crunchy systems, maybe a con game place to learn it, unless you're there to learn a crunchy system. If you're just there to kind of sit down at a table and get going and have fun, I think lighter rule systems are probably better.
Right.
Absolutely. One of the best parts about a con is you get to kind of bite the apple a little bit on all different systems and find out new systems that you've not played before that you want to experience more.
Right.
But I think we do have to rewind to Thursday night. So Thursday night while I was driving in,
Uh-huh.
I was listening to Carl's episode that he recorded driving in, and he said when BJ gets here, we'll have to make some pre-gen characters for this game, and he was describing what it was. We're gonna rescue a prisoner from a military prison, and something about it just struck me and said, that sounds like an episode of the A-Team. We should make these characters based on the A-Team.
Yes, they were definitely informed by the A-Team. It was awesome. We had like
Wear a spike on the top of your head so that you could play the A-Team characters correctly, like Mr. T wore the gold chains.
maybe the troll probably had. So I made like like BA's character, Mr. T.
Carl, it's BJ's turn to answer.
Okay. Well,
So yes, we had a troll character who was kind of a soldier that was based on B.A. Baracus, or was played by Mr. T. Big, strong, heavy gunner type. We created the character that I wound up playing was a sorcerer that we put in the role of Hannibal.
and I have a question. Not a question, a comment. So what was funny is we made BA or the BA clone first, like we call him Pity. So and then everyone at the table got the reference really, because even like what was really great about the game, we had a family playing, so a mother, father, and the daughter, and they all had watched they had made sure she had watched A-Team growing up. So they all got the reference, which I thought was really cool. But they also so you got to, because we named the troll soldier Pity, so we got to say, you got to say pity the fool somewhere. But I thought it was really funny. What was really funny is when we
around in a van.
an AP
Had a
it was an
van.
armored van. It was an APC.
Yeah.
But when we rolled like part of his background, it said one of the things. I mean, and this is great because Eric Hoffman and the authors of the book. Eric Hoffman was there at the con. He sent me some pre-gens to help me out, with building out these characters, which is really great. So Fiery Dragon Games or something like that. But anyway, so like when we rolled the background for Pity, it came up, one of the background things came up as Captain Hannibal was the best leader I ever had, or something like that. So like, we got to make perfect.
Randomly,
Boom.
right out of the rules.
Boom, we're doing the A-Team. So all right, go ahead, BJ.
So we made the Hannibal into a sorcerer type character. I think there was a little bit of John Constantine in there too.
Yeah, I think so.
But those are both characters who rely a lot on deception, on outthinking, on playing tricks, on misdirection. So it fit well to have this sort of not like archmage with a long beard sorcerer, but more this sort of retired, veteran military officer who uses magic to do things that you would want special forces do, because they rely a lot on infiltration and misdirection and stealth and outmaneuvering people and things like that. So that worked really well. And then we had that was another human that we based on Murdoch. It was a
dwarf,
the gearhead and ultimately the pilot. So that was fun. And then of course the fourth member of the A-Team, Face, we created an elf, but nobody played him.
Yeah.
You really wanted to play the Face anyways.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
practically speaking, though, the A-Team is kind of confined to the 70s and 80s style military action.
Mm-hmm.
And this being a cyberpunk game, we needed a hacker or a decker.
Right. So we had a hacker. And then the melee side of BA was I made a force, like a physical adept. So you have BA as the heavy gunner, but also BA as the fight.
There were kind of two versions of him.
Yeah, so someone took that character too. But I thought it went really well. So
I think if you redid the A-Team today, they'd have to have, a computer expert as part of their team.
Well, to their credit, in the 80s, it wasn't that big. I think we all had the Commodore 64 with the CD player that you had to attach, and it was an extra one you had to purchase.
Yeah.
But the bigger question is, anytime I watched the A-Team, there was always some big explosion and they were driving the van out. So were there any big explosions that you drove your non-van APC out of? Any
No,
fun?
we used it to create an explosion. We wound
Right.
up sacrificing the van to cause the distraction.
But there's
So-
an explosion behind the helicopter flying out of
Yes, yeah. It turns out the prisoner we were set to liberate was a dragon that had been confined into kind of a humanoid shape, and then bound with a combination of technological and magic things confining it. And so once we set it free, it was very weakened and had to be put next to fire to regain its strength. And as we're about to put him on the helicopter, it's like, oh, we started this big fire over here. Why don't we just push him into the fire?
Yeah, and the person who played the troll picked up weakened dragon and just walked into the fire.
Yeah.
A la Game of Thrones, Khaleesi, and those references were thrown at the table. It's great.
Bearing in mind, it's not a D&D troll, so he wasn't like,
burning like
super vulnerable to fire.
Well, plus he's wearing like heavily armor, so he didn't even he didn't even take any damage.
So the scene is the helicopter departs is a red dragon laying waste to the prison camp.
Yeah.
So there really was a big explosion, just not caught by the A-Team.
Right.
So that
caused a couple big explosions.
Carl,
There's a big
next year your follow-up instead of the A-Team has to be MacGyver.
Probably not. I'll probably do I would do if I did a follow-up to this, I would do like another adventure, right? Another type of maybe like more, I don't know. I don't know if assassination's a fun thing or not, but I got to figure out what would it be, what would be next. Somebody have to go back through the A-Team.
I have to stop. Speaking of bad dogs, I have to go stop mine from tearing something up. I'll be right back.
All right.
But well, that sounds like a really fun game, but we need to move on to the next one because, as you know, it's only a 4-hour game, so the wrap-up cannot be 8 hours.
Right. I could talk about the system and the game for a long time, so
right,
it was fun.
I'm going to throw it out there that you need to make a MacGyver game because you would always watch the A-Team followed by MacGyver and Alf. But I don't know, Alf makes a very good RPG.
No. See, my tendency would be to make like Magruder from like the Saturday Night Live like parody. So
where everything blows up anyway, right?
Yeah, everything blows up anyway.
And dragons and all kinds of things blowing up everywhere.
Yep,
but my understanding is then your next game came a little later in the evening.
Nope, afternoon.
A break for lunch.
Right. So like we said, we got the hot dogs for lunch, and then I ran a classic. Well, I don't know if it's not classic because apparently no one at the table had ever played it, even though we had some people who'd played AD&D back in the day. But it's this adventure called Chadranthor's Bane from Dungeon number 18, circa 1989, and it's by, I think it's Paul Bowman is the author. Is that, I don't know if that's correct, BJ. I can't remember, something like that. You noted it in your Arcane Alienisty thing, and I'm sure I mentioned it in the past in my previous podcast. But the reason I ran it is because the cover art is about the adventure, and it was done by Janelle Jaquays, and people really appreciated that. She was a big participant at North Texas RPGCon. She was always there, doing her art and running games and things like that, especially like Hero Quest and the like.
And she has unfortunately gone to the big sleep, correct?
Yes, she did earlier this year. So
she did not make her saving throw. However, we will always appreciate what she has left us with, and so to us, it's always a natural 20.
Right. So so yeah, it was great. It was a really fun game. I hadn't run AD&D 1E for like since the 80s. So what is that, 40 years? Is that 40 years?
Game for me. So I guess that
30
was
years. Yeah, 30 years or so, right?
I gotta think though. I was looking at when that module was published, and was it published as a 1E or as a 2E?
It was 1E.
Because that was the year that they switched over.
Yeah, it was like the last bit of because it does incorporate dungeon survival guide, wilderness survival guide, stuff like that. So well, BJ played in it, so I guess
rumor has it BJ got his wish to play a character that was the size of a miniature.
Yeah, that was fun. So
So, Carl, why did you pick this particular module to run? Was
I just
it because
explained it.
everyone was small? Was it because it was something that was lighthearted and geared in your mind towards a con? Or is it just something that struck you as funny and you decided, man, this would be really a fun game to make not just one part, but two parts?
Well, so I just wanted to do like homage to Janelle Jackways in my own way, and she did the cover art for this adventure, so I decided to do it. And I kind of in my mind, I didn't really get to play test it, but I did talk to some people about how to run AD&D 1E, Jason Connerly, among others, and then we had a great discussion with Daniel of Bandit's Keep also about how 1E and the origins, how it works, and that really helped me to kind of have the confidence to run this game. But I decided to do it in two parts, and it kind of worked.
Yeah.
I feel like it really worked.
And I think, were you talking about the when you guys went on Merc to meet
Yeah,
recently?
yeah.
Daniel and Jason and Carl, you know, kind of talking to Merc, who's sort of a kind of millennial, he's born in the early '80s.
We determined he
had
was
to
a
bring in
cusp
some old
Gen
parts
Xer,
to talk
actually.
about AD&D and explain it in context to him.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was really cool. So BJ, you never played AD&D, right? Did you play AD&D?
I played a little bit of 1E AD&D when I first started.
You're a 2E guy, right?
Really, 2E is where I cut my teeth.
Right. So you and another player had never played 1E, and there we had three people who were like, the old grizzled, actually awesomely veterans, right? Because there were like three ex-Navy dudes and an ex-Army Ranger at the table. I thought that was amazing.
One of them had a player's handbook that was autographed by
Gary Gygax. So like, oh, I'm glad he didn't tell me at the beginning because I would have freaked out. But it was awesome. I think we all had a good time. What I really appreciate about this game, and also about even in the Wetwire game, is I love player creativity. I feel, and I was talking to TJ Drennan, the guy who does the intro and outro music for this, and we really have this philosophy of being a yes and GM, let players try stuff out, and eventually you're going to get to a role, but let them try something out and go, okay, let's roll about it, right? So let's roll on it, and if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, well, we'll figure out what we're going to go from next. And I think there's a lot, like for example, we missed in the Wetwired game is like BJ in the initial encounter. I thought it was going to be a fight to test out how fighting works in the system, but BJ's character cast a confusion spell, and they kind of, instead of killing all the guys that they stole the APC from, they kind of tricked him out of it, which I thought was great. It's a great way to, and I think in the
Tasha, we're so proud of you, BJ.
Yeah.
Because she is not into killing everybody. You make friends and you keep going.
Or you pretend you like make them think they're your friend, and then they keep going. But
yeah, they were smiling and waving as we drove off in their stove
with a cigar in his hand. He's like smiling and waving. Yeah, so it was really cool. So and then
back to the AT&T game.
Right. So like I thought that the person who played the illusionist was really creative in their use of spells, very tactical in their use of spells.
They really, that game really hammered home, and I guess it's not a right or wrong. It's just a difference in style and approach. But I think that player, well, really everybody that played spellcasters in both sessions,
right,
hammered home why it's sort of erroneous to look at AD&D and go, wow, wizards don't put out much damage with their spells. What do they do in combat? And it's like they help you avoid combat. They enhance everybody else's. They basically have the cheat codes to the universe, and they use it to screw over the other side.
Paralyzation, color spray, silence. Slow.
So they didn't. It wasn't until the very end that we had a wizard doing any kind of damage dealing spells. They were just
so
illusions and tricks and things.
It begs my question of, were wizards originally the brainchild of like the ones that help everybody see that there's other than just battles to fight, and then have morphed into ones that just throw spells here and there and do major damage? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think the something that's evolved, and I don't know, I can tell when it started to happen, but I don't know why it started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's different schools of thought on it, but really, when the transition from AD&D to third edition, and still even in third edition, it wasn't quite this, but it really started to happen towards the end of third edition. This idea that everybody needs to be useful in combat, and useful means being able to knock hit points off of an enemy.
So do you feel
Wizards and other magic using characters have always been very useful in combat.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly at low levels, they may be useful in one combat, and you got to decide when you're going to roll them out and use the one or two spells they have.
Right.
But we were playing like 5th, 6th level characters. Once you get up to that, when they have multiple spells to choose from and they're not really worried about running out of spells too fast, those spells like sleep and color spray and what are some of the other ones?
Paralyzation was fantastic.
Paralyzation, where you're not harming anybody physically, but you're taking them out of a fight by rendering them unconscious, immobilizing them, using invisibility. There was one time you cast invisibility on the thief and allowed them to get away with a lot of kind of stuff, scouting ahead, laying groundwork for other stuff. So
I think it also, like, that adventure also highlighted player skill. Like, what are you going to do in a messed up situation where suddenly you're shrunk to the size of a miniature, like an inch and a half, and you're scattered. Your party members who are all like next to each other, rubbing elbows, and then now you're like separated by hundreds or thousands of feet. Right. I think that was a really neat, the initial situation where you were shrunk, and then I'm spoiling the adventure. It's Chad Ranther's Bane, Dungeon 18, 1989. That was many, many years ago. Almost, was it 35 years ago? So,
yeah.
Whatever. Spoiler. Sorry, Jason Connerly. And then and then goblins kind of rappel from the ceiling and, okay, deal with it. Right. So it was
fun.
It was a cool challenge and different. And there were like separate battles all over the place, and the players like, oh man, what the hell do I do? But I thought what was great, and I mean, I think this, and I mean, I had a great experience with the players at the table in all my games, right? So I think no one bitched about it. No one like left the table because they thought, oh, this is stupid. Well, I don't know how to play this. They're like, I think I heard the two guys who were buddies, one of them who was a ranger, looked at the other guy and said, this is hilarious and awesome. Let's it was great. It was great to hear that kind of stuff at the table. So they really got into it because they're like, because I think a lot of it is like the philosophy of player skill as opposed
Let
to
me ask this question, Carl.
Yeah.
Because it sounds an awful lot more to me like first, second, and third edition of AD&D were more about players focusing on teamwork. Whereas as we got a little bit further out there, it was more like, okay, I'm going to build my team, but each one of us has to be this, or that in order to fight off the big bad or get this, instead of just focusing on how can each part of my team make the other part of the team better.
I know where some of that came from.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
I think we've gotten there, and maybe not completely intentionally. And I think the part of the design philosophy that has kind of come into the game has been, if 3 people sit down to play D&D, we don't want them having to draw straws to see who has to play a cleric or a thief or something that seemed essential if none of them want to.
Yeah, I think it's become
the only way you do
work.
that is to make every single type of character, every class, a little more powerful, a little more durable, and a little more flexible, so that they're not in these little niches where if you want to have 3 people, they can pick any 3 classes, and the game works without them having to do a lot of adjustment or rethinking how they play.
I think it's gone back and forth, because I think in first and second edition, but towards the end of second edition, it's debatable. But I think in first edition, you play what you want to play and you figure out how to make it work as a team.
Yeah.
Right. Second and third edition, you get into the really strong niche play, right? And I think fifth edition is trying to really get out of that, so that you're not forced into like a healing class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone can do different things. I mean, fourth edition was really, I think fourth edition was like the extreme of that, in that there was really no niche. Everyone is more or less a spellcaster in some form, and fifth edition kind of dialed it back a little bit. there's
Yeah.
still like niche play.
My opinion on that, Carl, is
Scary.
4th edition 4E took characters and made it to the point where one person could not play their character the way they wanted to, because if they had any healing spells, they were
That was
automatically
third edition. That was third edition, I think.
Yeah, that was my
That
fourth
was your
edition.
experience
To
with
get
third
away
edition.
from that.
Because I think 3E, as a healer, I could still be a front man, and I felt like the rest of the team allowed that. But then when we started playing 4E and even 4.5, I felt like it was then very, for lack of a better term, glitchy. Okay, you're a druid, so you're just a healer. You might want
that was 3. That was
Oh.
actually 3, Amy.
that was 3.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah. Before he got, that's where 4E brought in the healing surges, which now exists in 5E as hit die, so that everybody has some capacity.
Everyone could heal, right?
faster on their own, so you don't have to have a dedicated. Like, even if you have a cleric in the party, they don't have to use all their spells on healing. They can do other things.
Yeah, your experiences with 3.5, actually, Amy.
I would say that experience, and I played with great players, and they were nice people to play with, and nothing against them, but that just soured me to D&D for 10, 15 years, because
I remember those back in AD&D with a small group going, well, we need a thief, which, a lot of old OD&D people say that's why we should have never had a thief. Right. Once you create that niche, nobody else can fill it.
Yeah.
And to me, it broke off the idea of having a cohesive party into, well, that's your role and you can never get out of it.
Yeah.
And you have to level up in order to make my character better instead of make the group better. But that's my own little D&D feeling about it. But getting back to the little mini people.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a really fun game. And I think my question from that would be, how would you adapt that to play perhaps in 5e, where you have just about anything you want to play?
I think a game like that would work in 5e.
It would work.
That's kind of new.
What's that?
I think with 5e, it's much more on the DM to create scenarios that cause the players to have to be interdependent. If that's really what you're trying to push for, is more teamwork. I think what I see, and I know we're kind of getting off on another tangent here, but what I see has happened in more modern gaming is, it's because I'm going to bring in some terms from my professional life. There's a term called parallel play, which we'll often use to describe somewhat social children who are on the autism spectrum. They will play near other children, but not play with other children. They kind of have that sense they should be with the other kids and playing, but they don't really engage. They're content to do what they want to do, just kind of in the vicinity of other children. And I see that happen sometimes in modern gaming, where we're not really coordinating our efforts because, we're going to survive this encounter. We all have enough hit points and enough resources that we don't have to really protect each other that much. So this isn't a team going in and fighting a mob of orcs or a bunch of zombies. This is 4 or 5 individuals who are within 20 feet of each other, each having its own little battle against a handful of the bad guys. I've seen that happen before, but that doesn't mean you can't play as a cohesive team. It's up to the players and the DM to set the scenario.
Yeah, and then 1E, I guess, I think in 1E, well, in this scenario particularly,
you get slaughtered if you tried to do it that way.
Right. Yeah, in 1E, it's really like a lot of like, all right, how can the mage or cleric or whatever make the battlefield a little easier for the fighter and thief or whatever to mop up, or for the thief to get into a good position to backstab and or whatever, So I think that's kind of cool. So I think it was a really cool scenario. I thought the day one of that Chad ran through's Bane, you guys completed what I had intended, right? So defeating Chad Ranther, which I thought was, and finding out how to, fix the curse. And I thought that was a neat combination of diplomacy and kick down the doors and beat the bad guy. I thought that was kind of neat how that worked out.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question then, because we talked about the evolution of the characters, but do you feel like AD&D and now 5e, we'll leave out the ones I don't like, we're more focused on the storyline? Because I feel like
I
there
don't think
was
I think, well, it depends on when you get into AD&D.
Right.
Original AD&D was not.
It was emergent. Yeah.
There's you can find a lot of YouTube videos talking about how Tracy Hickman changed Dungeons and Dragons
Mhm.
Yeah.
by introducing a much more narrative focus.
Yeah, and that continued with like the Dark Sun stuff.
Ravenloft, but probably more well known for Dragonlance.
Yeah.
And this idea that there should be there should be some sort of unfolding story that should come to a satisfactory resolution within a session or two.
Right. So like in a con game,
and-
you're gonna have a story, but like in a campaign game, it should be what do the character all right, you got into the wilderness, what are you looking for? You have some rumors, you know, pursue them.
Yeah.
Which I think segues nicely into the game that I played that BJ unfortunately was not in, but
Oh, but would you say that you would pick up a game for how the character's evolution is first, or the actual storyline first? I mean, which way do you guys head that way? We'll start with Carl because I picked on BJ a minute ago.
I don't I kind of am now trending towards more emergent play. Like I have an idea of what you know story might be out there, but it's up to the players to engage in it. So case in point in your Eberron game, I mean, you guys picked up and had started almost, without my direction, this gang war, right? Now, are you going to go in, you're going to, turn right in Albuquerque and go into the Mournland, or are you going to pursue your goal and idea to make some more money and get a expedition funded to, somewhere else? So I'm letting you guys do that. So I'm more about like, let the players decide what's going on. I don't have a story in mind. I think that's what I've been trending to lately. And especially with, yeah.
What
I mean,
about you?
I'll run a module here and there, and sure, there's a story there. But even like, so I think the better modules are like, okay, these are these different locations, and the players can go in that direction or not. So it's more of a almost a mini sandbox.
And how about you, BJ? Do you pick up a character saying, I want to play this character because it's a wizard at this level and it can do this? Or do you pick a game based on more of a storyline? Or is it a good mixture of both for you?
If I'm a player, I don't care. I want to come up with an interesting character that'll be fun to play, and whatever scenario gets presented, I kind of go with it. And whether that's kind of more of a linear thing like you would have in a Pathfinder adventure path, or whether it's just more of an open kind of ended stuff like we're doing with Eberron, I can be happy either way as a player most of the time, as long as everybody's having a good time and we're interesting things are happening.
Which is
As a
exciting.
DM, I prefer the emergent play. I've gone down the path of the big damn quest, from level 5 to 20, and they always just fall apart. People get tired because they feel like, okay, well, we can't stop and do something else interesting because now we've got to save the world in this one very specific way that only we can do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
So I like to build more scenarios where this is kind of what's going on in the background. You can kind of engage with it however you feel you want to, or you can fart around a little bit, and when it's clear to me you're not interested, we'll move on to something else.
yeah, and I think that all depend. It's all dependent on game design, right? So I think like the adventure path, right? That I think Paizo and Pathfinder have create. They didn't create it, but I wouldn't even say perfected it, but that's their model, right? You have this adventure path. In contrast, right? So I think the Warhammer Fantasy Enemy Within campaign that I'm running is so like it's almost like little plot little points here and there, and you can string them together, or you can go in your own direction. This is still happening in the background, and how you engage with it is really dependent on the character's decisions. So I kind of prefer that, where it gives the characters more, more what's agency is, I guess is the term, agency, right? As opposed to like following a path, right? But maybe that's why it's called maybe that's why it's called Pathfinder. I don't know.
I think so. It's adventure path. I think Wizards has tried to just emulate because Paizo kind of came up and
Sorry.
and you see Wizards respond beginning with fifth edition is their major approach to adventures is to do their own version of an adventure path. Whereas where I think D&D as D&D shines is more in here's a scenario, there's maybe a small adventure, or multiple opportunities in this area to get involved in something or kind of make it your own. Not that there's never a story or something, but I think D&D probably works better as episodic adventures where, okay, here's what we did for level 1, 2, and 3. And now there could be what comes naturally from that. Let's go on that. Or maybe we can wander over to a different part of the world and have a completely separate type of adventure. I think there's room for both, and there's good things about both, but we need both. And I think I think Pathfinder's got the adventure path sealed up pretty well. D&D should, probably, I think, should go back to its roots of
and that's how I ran the game,
This
right?
is very modular, not that linear.
Yeah, that's how I ran the game way back. Is like, okay, we're in the Forgotten Realms. Our base is in Waterdeep. What do you guys want to do? Oh, we want to expedition up to that fabled place of Silvery Moon. I hear there's not a lot of nice folk up there. So then then that becomes like the adventure and what happens on the way, right? So I think that's kind of fun to do, and you run into shenanigans and trouble, and I think that's like I said, I'm going back to that. Not like I don't run the other way, because there's some actually players that really prefer that and don't like a sandbox, and have told me I'd rather know what I'm supposed to do next, not decide what to do next.
What we got with this module you ran for us with AD&D, you had the best of both. It's a scenario where there's a clear solution you need to go. It's just, if you want to get out of this situation, here's what you got to do. How you get from the beginning to the end is completely up to you. There's multiple ways to go, and there's more here than you need to actually. You don't have to go everywhere to figure out what's going on.
Yes. And in fact, one of the players told me like he wasn't proud of the fact that his halfling thief stood up against 10 goblins and survived. He was happier that he was able to figure out a way based on the map and the sort of geography layout of avoiding encounters to get to the end game quicker. I thought he was so proud of that. He's like, oh, it's so awesome how we were able to do this. So
Pretty cool. So maybe our listeners can call in and weigh in on whether or not they're more episodic or whether they're more about the overall storyline. But I want to move a little bit forward.
Okay.
Because I think we're getting on a tangent, which is good. I like tangents. But speaking of tangents, let's talk about my favorite pastime, shopping.
Oh.
Did you guys pick up any exciting things at the con that you want to talk about?
BJ, you first, because you got a haul, man.
So probably the most impressive thing I got, two things that were the most impressive to me. I got this.
You have to describe it because we're not doing it on the YouTubes.
Oh, we're not? Okay.
Well, maybe we are. I don't know. But if you blur it, we can't see what you're showing anyway. So unblur and then show it.
I apologize.
Let me unblur just in case you put this up on YouTube.
Will not stop barking.
It's all right. BJ's dog is tearing stuff up in the background. Okay.
This is a print of, I believe this is artwork that showed up in somewhere in AD&D. So Paladin and his Warhorse. This is by Darlene, who was one of the did a lot of art for D&D and role-playing games early on. She was the first woman to really be prominent as an artist in the industry.
Absolutely beautiful.
But so she I mean, it's got her original signature is just part of the print, but then she also signed it herself with a pen to BJ and signed her name on it. So
yeah, it was actually in the Rogues Gallery.
That is pretty.
Okay.
The Rogues Gallery. A Paladin and his Warhorse by, and so it's an Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Rogues Gallery. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that one has a great picture too of another Paladin standing over the corpse of a black dragon. That's a cool one too. So so that Darlene picture is amazing. Yeah.
The other thing that was really cool was I got this is when I wasn't expecting anything like this. I wound up that Merle Rasmussen, is that his, was there. He was the designer of Top Secret, the first spy espionage based art role playing game.
Well, that sounds fun.
He was there. He was there for a few hours signing autographs and also to kind of promote the new version of Top Secret, which came out a few years ago. It's not hardly. I mean, it's got a different core mechanic. It's a different game, but he helped design this one as well.
Yeah.
And so he was there, kind of helping promote that, and then he signed the. I bought the box set, and he signed the rule book from the box set.
Nice.
It's interesting. Top Secret is the only role playing game I think he's ever done. He's traditionally his main career has just been in traditional board games, card games. So he's done a lot of educational games. So we also talked a little bit about he's worked with others. He's worked with psychologists to develop stuff like that. That was really cool. So that was probably the other thing that was really great that I walked away with.
That's cool.
get
Yeah,
the
so
conversation
I guess you're gonna have to run that for us, EJ.
Yeah.
I'm sensing a YouTube video.
Yeah, I'm sensing
But
a
then I
YouTube
got some,
actual play.
just some general supplements for like old school essentials and BX D&D.
You got a lot of stuff for from James Groggy too, though.
Yeah, from Lamentations. The Flame
Lamentations,
Princess,
yeah.
and he signed the. I bought another copy of the core rule book so he could sign it. So I
That's
forgot
cool.
to bring mine. And then I got my Hyperborea books signed.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank Carl. He managed to find out. Some of those folks are there, but you don't know exactly where they're at. Like I know I did the one I didn't. Two things I didn't get that I wanted to try to get was to have James Cook sign my second edition player's handbook and
Yeah, I didn't see Zeb there. I didn't see him.
I know he was there the first day, and then Kelsey Dion, I never could find her.
Me
She was there
neither.
the whole time, but I was going to have her sign my
Shadow Dark.
book.
Mhm.
But
Me too.
I'm
Yeah, I
sure-
took my
I'm
Shadow
sure
Dark next time.
maybe next year.
Yeah. So it was really cool to run into some of these creatives like Jeff Talanian, who writes Hyperborea, and I got to run a Hyperborea game, and I thought that was really what BJ has participated in and helped to play test to get some ideas out there and drop some lore in my Down and Out in Hyperborea. That's what I ran on Saturday morning, and it was totally emergent, right? Here you're dropped off here in this town. The Amazon Marines are kind of hold this town. They want you to go out as adventurers for their own purpose. And here's a job board. What do you want to do? And the players got together, decided what they want to do, hired some typical, old school play, hired some henchmen and went out into the field. We had a Dark Fluid who's on the Audio Dungeon Discord and has left messages for Geomologist Presents play in that game, which was really great. So it's always good to have a buddy playing in the game that you're running. It makes me less nervous. But I thought what was cool about that game, and then also about on Saturday too, right? So Saturday in the AD&D game was only BJ and one returning player, and some people had signed up, but they didn't show up. So I asked the organizers, "What would I do?" They said, "Whatever, just open it up." So one guy, the guy who played with BJ, brought some of his friends over that he plays DCC with, and what was cool is they're like they're like a younger crowd, probably have learned 5e and DCC, and they picked up AD&D very quickly. And then there are a couple other players who their game didn't make, or the GM something happened with the GM, maybe had an emergency. They kind of joined this game too. So we had a full table too, like four, like 6 people at that table. And then Hyperborea, like I had one of the people who had signed up brought his dad, and he said, "Hey, can you join us?" I said, "Sure." And then someone else said, "Hey, my buddy didn't have a game, but we saw this Hyperborea game. We really like Hyperborea. Can we play?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So we had like 7 players at Hyperborea. And then what we saw later, when we kind of Jeff Flanian was running like on Sunday was running like come up to where his he has his like room, and he was running a game with a lot of people, and there's going to be multiple GMs come in and run an encounter, and there was like 14 players at that table or something. BJ, do you remember how many were at that table.
Yeah, I think there were 12, yeah, 12 or
Yeah,
14.
a lot of people. I mean, I couldn't stay because we were taking off, but I mean it was pretty impressive. So I think the Hyperborea game I really enjoyed a lot because it was totally emergent. The all the encounters, I had some ideas and I had some locations, but all the encounters were generated through random rolls. So I think that's a fun. I mean, it was actually promoted. I promoted as a West Marches drop in, drop out type of scenario. So we're just going to figure out what happens at the table, and the players really made the most of it and really enjoyed it, I thought.
Well, speaking about fun purchases, didn't you make some fun purchases, Carl?
Yes, I think the coolest thing I got is that there's this game called Villains and Vigilantes, which was the first superhero game I played back in the 80s, and they have a new edition of it, a newish edition, and Jeff T is one of the authors and does the cover art. So I purchased that, and that is a really cool World War II supplement with it. And I've always wanted to run a World War II superhero game, so I got that as well. I think that was the coolest purchase I got. And then I was able to get a physical copy. I have a PDF copy of Clark and Holmes, and I was really neat to be able to get a physical copy of Clark and Holmes. So Holmes being the first basic D&D box set that was out there, going with the red dragon on the cover that is very iconic. So it's cool to get Clark and Holmes. Aaron Clark, awesome guy. He's played in my games. I've played in his games. He's on the Audio Dungeon Discord, so it's great to get his book in print.
Sounds to me like yet another YouTube game. We're going to be busy, BJ.
I know. Yeah. And
I might
BJ's
have
got to run
to
Lamentations
together.
now for us. Yeah. BJ's going to run Lamentations for us too, right?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of a trigger warning, not for children style game, but
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
you have raccoons for the children, and that was a lot of fun.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a couple of closing questions because
Okay.
I capped on my amount of time that I'm being allowed by the geomologist here. And my first question is going to go to BJ, and I'm going to ask him, what did you learn from this con that you will use going forward at the next cons you go to?
I will probably I'll probably play a little bit more broader range of games. I think this time I just kind of hung out with and played Carl's games just to kind of see what it was like.
Mhm.
So I'll probably get in some games with total strangers next time.
And would you want to just run some of the games at those cons too, like Carl does, like come down
Yeah.
to Chupacabra and run a game or something? Or
Yeah, I think I might even run, pitch to run a game, at least one game next year at North Texas.
because I know Carl's told me that as things have progressed, he prefers to be the one at the table and running the games because that's where his true fun comes from,
Yeah,
not just always being a player. Would you agree with that? Or
I like playing because I don't get to. If I don't make a point of playing, I never get to play. Like lately, I've been playing a lot more because just kind of the way things have gone the last couple of years. But traditionally, I'm the forever GM. So
like Carl?
so I appreciate getting and it's I always like to play with other game masters to see what they do, what I can learn from them, or how they approach things.
Yeah, I'm kind of picky about my game master, so I'll play in BJ's games. I'll play like in some like TJ Drennan or Jason Hobbs game, but more and more I like Joe Richter, Connerly, Joe Salvador, the people I play with online and in person, right? But I more and more I'm like I'm an admitted control freak. I'd rather run. So
Yeah.
and that's what I did this year is I played in one and ran four.
That's
So
interesting though,
BJ
because your style as a GM is not I don't experience you as a controlling GM. You kind of let us everybody kind of play their characters and come up with their ideas and try them out, and again that kind of yes and approach.
That's because he's always forced to play with me. Tells me I go off the rails.
Yeah, Amy's good at training, be accepting of crazy ideas because they can go off and that's the fun part. I mean, like I said, from like Wet Wired, when you hit them with the confusion and everyone riff from that, and then the great idea that the halfling thief player had with walking, avoiding encounters and using the things that you found during the play to,
Yeah.
the diplomacy over let's just murder hobo everything really worked even in the second session, where like you came across some gnolls, took advantage of the fact that you were on Chad Ranther's rat cavalry, and kind of diffuse that situation. I thought that was, and then clearly the creative solution on how to get to stop the curse right in that adventure. I
Yeah.
thought that was really good. So just thinking, I like to hear ideas, like the thinking. I thought like in the Wet Wired game, there was so much. Most of the game wasn't really the execution part. It was like the planning part. Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get in there? What are we going to do? Okay, now let's do it. Make the roll, see what happens. Right. So I thought that was really cool. I like that kind of stuff. I like
Yeah.
it when I can sit back also and let the players just like role play.
Oh yeah. So
That
BJ,
happened.
what would your advice be to people going to their first con now that you've gone off to yours?
Save some money so you don't walk away without souvenirs. Budget your, but set a budget so you don't walk away with too many souvenirs and no groceries for the following few weeks.
That's
Stay within
harder
the
to
budget.
do.
Yeah. Oh, I do have to say that BJ got to run. We ran his the little card game with the card game
We
dungeon.
made it out. We got
OSC.
about 20 minutes of it. So
Yeah, but we got but because you like threw like a million kobolds at me, my two characters. I mean, so,
I didn't do that. The dice did that. I was just
Oh,
rolling
okay.
on the table.
That's what they all say.
But so like I think if we would have been playing that like at the table, then really my characters would be like, okay, we got beat up, we got to go back to town now.
Yeah.
So we'll take our cobalt teeth and copper pieces that they had, and
That's what happened to us in Shadow Dark. We made it
true.
like 100 feet into the dungeon and had to stop for the day because we got
jacked up. Yeah, that happens.
Before I let this go too terribly far, BJ, do you have any closing comments about the con that you want to make? And then we'll go to you, Carl.
No, I had a really good time. I didn't know 100% what to expect. I kind of expected to go have a good time. So I was really, really, it was good to get the experience. I know because I've said, I never got to go to cons growing up, or most of my life I've, been too busy, had other stuff going on, and I'm kind of at a place in my life right now where I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to make up for a little bit of lost time and try to go to as many as I can for the foreseeable future. So that was a good introduction to what it's like to go to a game convention. And I appreciate, I like that, I've seen like videos and photos from Gen Con. I don't know if I want to go to Gen Con. That's just too big. Too many people. But something like this, where it was never so crowded that you couldn't walk around and have a little bit of, you could move your elbows. And it wasn't so busy that if you wanted to stop and talk to a vendor, you could, because they didn't have 20 other people trying to stand in line for stuff. So it was good. I think the size of it worked really well too. So.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And how about you, Carl? Any final comments?
Yeah. So I have a couple. So the first one is I like small cons like this. I like Chupacabra Con. I like North Texas. I'd love to go to like the Gary Con or whatever. And I compare it like in my previous life, like compare it to like going to like a Cold Spring Harbor or what's it called, a Gordon conference, which are really small and more intimate. You could talk to people better and get to know them and what they do, both here in game wise and there in science, as opposed to like AACR or American Diabetes Association, where it's just so many people and so much. You just get caught up and lost, and you never see everything and never get to talk to people. So I really appreciate the smallness of it, although it is getting bigger. I mean, it's crowded. The games are full. People coming to your games when they don't make. I think that's really great. And I think the other thing I wanted to say is like, you people out there. I know probably speaking to the what's it called, BJ, where you speak to people who are like-minded. I know
Reaching to the
I know I'm preaching to the thank you. I know I'm preaching to the choir because a lot of the listeners here probably went to North Texas. But I want to say that, North Texas is a really good con. It has had in the past an a reputation of, people of a certain group playing a certain type of game, but I saw a lot of women, a lot of diversity in age and gender and ethnicity, and is a very welcoming con. It reminds me of when I grew up, and gaming was that place you could go where it didn't matter what your background was, if you loved D&D or what game X, whatever it was. I played a lot of Star Frontiers too and Traveler. Then, it didn't matter where you're from. You're welcome at my table. And I think that is a pervasive philosophy at North Texas RPG Con. I had a great time, and you guys should all experience that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to Crush the Con into something this large. And, I invite everybody to come out and see us the second weekend in October at Big Texas Comic Con at the Henry B.
In San Antonio.
In San Antonio, we are trying to grow it back into what it used to be. And
I would just
so
say,
while
this: God bless you for not having a con in San Antonio in June or July.
oh no, no.
Wait till the fall, late fall when it's
We
it's
don't
not
want
100
to
degrees.
people come into the game. We don't want somebody leaving and saying that was really hot.
I mean,
Dice.
the hotel was nice, but that last day we were there,
Oof, yeah.
it got nearly 100 degrees.
Yeah, one player made the comment. He wanted to go get some food during a break. He's like, I think I'm sunburned when he came back in.
Well,
So
I
it was
guarantee
great.
you, down here, the Henry B. When we have it inside, bring a jacket. It's
It
freezing.
gets cold.
Now, I do want to say thank you so much for coming on to the Roving Reporter and giving up your evening to recap your gaming convention. And we look forward to seeing you soon. We're going to have to get some of these games to the table, as well as some of the ones that we've been promising our listeners, and we will get them there, I promise. And so, with that being said, I just want to wrap up and say good night and good rolling. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.